Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your Captain Definition, and we're almost at the final frontier with the penultimate episode of Picard now being released. Our mission is to boldly go where no one has gone before and give our thoughts on the new entry as well as what could be happening in the future. Things are slowly starting to come together, and this episode really narrows down the plot and has a couple of cool moments in it that I definitely think are worth talking about. The episodes had went to hour-long entries recently, but this one drops back to 45 minutes for a slightly tighter entry. Throughout this video we'll be discussing the ins and outs of the 9th episode's plot, its Easter eggs, and what we thought of it as a whole. We will be engaging with heavy spoilers here, so if you haven't had a chance to catch the show yet and don't want to know what happens, then I highly suggest that you turn off now. At the end of the video, I'm also going to be talking about the big plot point that was potentially leaked from the script, but I'll give you a heads up before we get to that, just in case you don't want it ruined. Anyway, with all out the way, thank you for clicking the video. Now let's get into our breakdown of Picard episode 9. Okay, so episode 9 is the first episode in the series that doesn't open with either a dream or a flashback. It picks up immediately after last week with the crew of La Sirena arriving at their destination in the Hulion system. As we know, the Romulans decided to take their time getting there, so the crew have arrived at Capalius far earlier. Narek shows up not long after, and we saw last week that he'd been waiting for them, and then we finally get to hear the red alert sound from TNG, which screams throughout the ship. I think that this is the first time it's been in the series, and it's a nice little callback, even if they don't say, "Shields up, red alert." I can't do the voice. Anyway, there's a quick little space battle, and after the young hobbit pulls some nice maneuvers, we get the first big moment in the episode when the Borg cube arrives. Since being regenerated by 7 of 9, the ship is now able to bring its weapons back online, and as we know, the cube is a floating armada. It does get pretty messed up in the episode, but I think it will be a big player in next week's entry. The planet sends its defenses to tackle the 3 vessels, and after Raffi states that they look like orchids, Soji says that she's sure they just call them orchids, which does show that she has been to the planet before and is aware of their countermeasures. She later says that she has a small grasp of the planet, but is unable to fully remember specifics, stating that she and Maddox must have left it when she was very young. This is similar to the story last week, in which we learned that Rios had come face to face with a synth named Janna out in deep space. Rios's captain was ordered to kill her by Commodore O, and from this episode, we can gather that Maddox became aware of this, and this is why Soji and Daj were instead just dropped on different planets and neither reached out to Starfleet. Everything comes crashing down into the atmosphere, burning up the flowers, and it sends Picard into a state of losing his surroundings. In Picard episode 2, we learned that he was suffering from Irumodic syndrome, a dementia-like disease that was going to severely limit his lifespan. So far, he's avoided the worst of it, but as the season is coming to a close, it's slowly catching up with him. The ship's power shuts down, meaning that they're unable to use the medical bay automatically, but luckily, there's a doctor on board, even if she's a homicidal maniac. Agnes says that she managed to revive Picard using the older technology of a tricorder. This symbolically shows that, though the old and seemingly redundant methods are often cast aside, they are still more useful in some ways than their apparent new and improved replacements. Of course, this metaphorically has ties to Picard, who was pretty much cast to the side after his resignation. However, throughout the series, he has shown that he can still keep up with the best of them. Let's face it, the old ways are a lot better, because I'd rather hang around with Riker and Troy for 45 minutes than these suckers. Just kidding, Agnes, I love you. But not really. The aesthetic is later picked up upon when they eventually reach Soji's home and Picard's wrinkles are able to tell stories. They imply what he's been through and survived and are not something to be embarrassed or ashamed of, and I did appreciate this theme being laced throughout the episode. Agnes has unearthed Picard's disease, but there's no time to rest, as, like him, the ship needs to be put back together. Picard calmly tells them that he's gonna drop Soji off with the people, and then says that they need to prepare for a fight. As if the big Borg cube that's just smashed in their planet wasn't big enough to tell them, but never mind. He also opens up about his disease, but states that everyone who treats him like an old man is gonna get sent to the torpedo bay and blasted off into space. It's a really emotional moment, and I don't know if it's because I've been through similar things with members of my family who, for whatever reason, didn't want to be a burden, but this kinda got to me. Pride can often make people think that the second they need help is the moment that they become useless. I think Picard as a whole has very much been about the character proving these perceptions wrong. Picard decides that because time isn't running short enough, what with his disease shutting down his body bit by bit and the incoming war fleet, that they should head to the Borg cube to look for Hugh and Elnor. He's in for a surprise because Hugh has of course died, but I'm happy they found a way to get 7 of 9 back with Picard, even if it's very brief. They reactivate the cube and use the long-range scanners on board. Here they pick up the incoming Romulan warbirds and count their numbers at 218. The group set back out and Elnor decides to remain behind on the cube. I don't know why this guy even came along, as he's pretty much only been in the show to drop in on the Borg cube and get 7 and 9 there, but I suppose he did defend Hugh. Wait, never mind. Anyway, the group arrive at the compound and we can see that it's full of twins. As we know, androids tend to be made in pairs, and it seems that they have found a way to meld machine and organic on a mass scale. Soji is finally home, and not only is she recognised, but also Picard is for being Data's captain. We learn that the fleet are 2 days away and that they need to make orchids, but a big moment comes when Dr. Alton Indigo Soong makes an appearance. Played by Brett Spiner, we learn that, in some ways, he is Data's brother. Dr. Soong, who created Data, is actually his father, and though they aren't blood relatives, they're pretty similar appearance-wise. Now, is this guy a synth? Yeah, potentially, I think he could be. I can see it being a cool twist that may be revealed in either episode 10 or in the next season, or he could just be a normal guy. I'll leave that up to you in the comments. Now, what I do think this does is that it shuts down the theories that Data would be returning through B4. B4 did appear in episode 1, and this led to fans speculating that he would be coming back as a fully fledged character. However, those theories were quickly debunked, and Brett Spiner also publicly said that it's getting more and more difficult to play an ageless android. This, however, brings the actor back in an interesting way that allows him to go out for beers on a Friday night. We have been wondering for a while now who exactly was behind everything involved in the creation of Dajin Soji, and now we know for sure that Soong continued his father's work. Another version of Soji arrives called Sutra, who we learn was the sister of Jana. We learn that the secret of the Jacques Vache may actually be intended solely for synthetic minds, and that the madness which comes from it is through organics trying to comprehend it. This is why those Romulans went mad, and it's actually a nice little twist that I didn't see coming. Through Agnes's mind, old Kama Sutra twists her way into her memories and discovers the truth. Because organic life is born out of chaos and is ultimately finite, our nature is to strive for perfection, and thus all life will create synthetics once it hits a certain point. However, organic life will ultimately come to hate this out of either jealousy or bitterness, and they will try and destroy it. In doing so, they will destroy themselves, and thus a higher level of synths waits on the outskirts of the universe, watching over all and waiting for their time to be called forth. Sutra wishes to tackle this head on, whereas Soji wants to find an alternative where so many don't have to die. Sutra sort of takes on a villainous role as the episode progresses, and it's clear that she wants a reason to wipe out the organics for what they've done to her kind. You could say that Sutra represents the karma for organics, like Kama Sutra. I've already done that joke, haven't I? Terrible channel. Anyway, Soong has been creating a body that could have a mind transfer put into it, and thus the person would gain immortality. Soong wishes to use it for himself due to the fact that he's getting old, but I do find it unlikely that it's going to be him who ends up in it. My theory is that Picard gets transferred into this, as I can't really see who else is going to be an applicable candidate for it, especially with him being at death's door and CBS likely wanting a second season. Narek is brought to the base and we get to meet Spock too. I don't know why they needed a number for the cat, because we didn't give one to our cat, Madonna, which was named after... Yeah, it was my mother's cat. I didn't name it, but you can draw the lines there. Raffi tells Picard that she loves him and he almost pies her, but he says it back. It feels like a final goodbye, and they do mention in the episode that every time a goodbye is said between two people that it could be their last, which I took this moment as meaning. Picard reaches back out to Starfleet and Narek sits dehydrated in a cell. He and Soji break up with one another and Narek says that he's genuinely sorry for what's happened. We have been theorizing for a while that he will end up switching sides, and I definitely think that this is cemented by this conversation. Narek spots a brooch of a hummingbird that is later used as a knife to stab a synth, and thus he's able to escape with Sutra's help. Soji and Picard talk about the logic of sacrifice and how sometimes life must be ended in order to protect life. It's a nice little conversation, and the episode really ramps up as Sutra goes to set Narek free. She clearly allows this to happen in order to show that organics are bad, and though we don't know for definite, it is likely that she framed Narek for the murder. Similar to how there was a false flag attack with the synths on Mars to outlaw them, Sutra is showing that organics are bad by following a similar sort of methodology and making fear drive the need for revenge. Soji did pay lip service to fear being the main motivator in murder, and it is cemented here by Sutra's actions. Now, it is possible that Sutra is actually the destroyer, as she wishes to annihilate organic life by the sounds of it. She could also end up becoming the 5th and final Borg Queen in the series, as the cube is now on the planet, and it is possible that the character could end up heading there. If this is your first time checking out the video, then just so you know, every week we talk about how Data had 5 Queen cards in the opening of the show, and this pointed to there being 5 Queens in the series. So far there's been Jana, Daj, Soji, 7 of 9, and now it looks like Sutra is taking up the position. Sug and Sutra have created a beacon to summon the synths on the outskirts of the universe, and they will likely come forth and wipe out all organics. This is really ramping up for war, and it's a very tense way to end the episode, with Sutra sort of becoming someone who rallies the troops together. There's very much a persecution motif that is similar to the Jews in World War II, and Picard says that he wishes to hide the synths whilst the government searches for them, and that he will argue with Starfleet that they're good. He says that the Federation will listen to him, but as we know, they don't really care about his opinion, and thus this suggestion falls on deaf ears. Soong and the synths place him under house arrest, and Agnes states that she will side with the robots, but as we know from her nature, she's probably going to stab them in the back, ruin their plans, and the show in general. I'm just kidding, Agnes. I'm sorry, I love you. The episode ends with us cutting to Commodore O leading the fleet of Romulans as they approach the planet. Now going forward, Picard is clearly trying to convince Soji to rethink a course of action. As predicted, Narek has switched sides, and with him no longer being selfish, he will likely be what brings down Sutra's plans after the synths discover it was her who let him out. It looks like there's going to be a big face-off, and I really enjoyed this episode and can't wait to see what happens in the finale. Now for the rest of the video, we will be going into the plot leaks, so if you want to duck out now, thanks for making it to this point. It's not a show-ruining reveal, but it may spoil something cool, so this is your last chance to back out. If you're still here, thank you, and the leak that dropped recently from Twitter user Angry Mr. Fibble allegedly showed a page from the script in which Picard, Raffi and Agnes say their goodbyes to Rios. You can pause the video and read the page on screen if you want, but basically it has Agnes saying to Rios that they should move away with each other to Osaka. In it, Agnes professes her love to Rios, who completely rebuffs everything. She says that he got her to open up and that she hasn't felt this way in a long time. Rios tries to interrupt her, saying that he can't, but she doesn't want to go on without him. Rios says that he needs to show her something, and then he says to the ship, "Disable emergency command hologram." Upon saying this, Rios begins to fade away, showing that he was a hologram this entire time. Now, whether this is true or not, we won't know till next week, but personally, I think it contradicts a lot of things in the show. Firstly, in this episode, Rios opened the shutters on the ship, so I don't know how he could do this if he was a hologram, and secondly, when he went to Canto Bites, the Las Vegas planet, he was served personal ads, which would only be the case if he was a person. However, this leak could indeed be true, and it does at least look like it's been professionally done. I guess we'll see next week, and I do actually quite like the twist. Anyway, that's the leaks part of the video over with. Now obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on Picard, so comment below and let me know. If you enjoyed this video, then please drop a thumbs up, and if you missed any of our breakdowns on the episode so far, then they're going to be linked in a playlist at the end. If you want to support the channel from as little as 99 cents a month, then please click the join button below. We massively appreciate it, and as a thank you, you get access to content early. If you want to come chat to us after the show, either follow us at DefinitionYT or click the Discord link in the description below. Those are the best ways to keep up to date with heavy spoilers, so hopefully we'll see you over there very soon. This is a channel for people who are never missing television, so if that's the kind of thing you like, you need to subscribe to Definition. Thanks again for taking the time to watch this, you've been the best, and I'll see you next time. Take care, peace.